Hi, my dear Astro family. So today I wanted to speak to you about Mars in Aquarius. Of course, we have touched base on it multiple times because Mars and Venus are going to be meeting on 0 degree of Aquarius, and previously they met in Capricorn also. So, of course, this is a very important constellation at the moment in the sky. But I just wanted to break down Mars in Aquarius a little bit more for you because it has been very prominent since 2020 March. The reason being is because that's the time when Mars and Saturn had a conjunction also in Aquarius. And then now they are going to be making another conjunction sometimes early April. So of course, this is going to be an important period of time. And the very last time it happened was in 1992, March 6, when Mars and Saturn was making a conjunction on 13 degree of Aquarius, and also Venus was around too. So therefore, I kind of see some colorations going on here, and I wanted to shed some light. But before we do that, let me just promote a couple of things. I still have got 30% off on all my astrological readings till mid-March, so you might want to be grabbing your spot, as well as I'm offering 50% off on all my astrological courses. So you might want to be looking at them if you want to be deepening your knowledge about certain things. But the most exciting one is probably the planetary aspects. So basically, I'm going to be making a 13-week course, all planetary alignment. So what does it mean to have Mars, I don't know, in connection to Mercury in your chart? So we will be looking at individual aspects, and that's on a discounted price already, because from the 20th of March, its price will go up. So you might want to check these out. And of course, if you want to get more insight about weekly astrology, as well as monthly forecasts, or some extra content to on astrology, then you might want to be checking out my subscription plan also. So guys, let's get started. Oh, and by the way, with this course, the astrology members of my community has got up to 25% discount as well. So it's kind of really worth checking that out. So, but let's get started on that Mars in Aquarius. So, well, on one hand, one of the reasons why it's an important movement from the perspective of Mars, because it was in the sign of exaltation before, and now it's kind of going into a neutral sign, kind of a neutral sign. But I'm going to kind of try to explain to you why it can be sometimes a little bit difficult for Mars being in the sign of Aquarius, as well as what could be the positive influences of that. So, of course, we have got 3 planets changing sign quite close to each other. So we've got Mars moving into the sign of Aquarius a couple of hours later. Venus is moving into the sign of Aquarius, and then they are forming a conjunction of 0 degree, which is kind of like the degree of the great conjunction also. That's where Saturn and Jupiter met previously in 2020. So, of course, it's going to be kind of like on one hand, the restart of economy and so forth, but I'm gonna dive into that a little bit deeper. And then Mercury is gonna be changing sign too, and that's gonna be 3 days later. So this second week of March is quite action-packed, really. But we are focusing on Mars. So the movement of Mars is going to be happening on the 6th of March, and then it will be in the sign of Aquarius till 14th of April. So from an exalted position, it's moving into kind of like a neutral position. This Mars becomes quite an intellectual one, so we should be expecting some technical developments, or we want to be pushing our ideas forward. Probably we're going to feel it mostly when it comes to the collective experiences, because at the end of the day, Aquarius talks about groups of people. So organizations, groups, the people overall. Now, the very last time Mars was in the sign of Aquarius, and that was in 2020. So Mars has got this 2-year cycle. But why it was also important, because once it met Saturn, kind of like the pandemic was declared. so by the health organizations and so forth. So from that point of view, we have got a Mars return of that announcement, which kind of indicates that, you know what, probably some of the restrictions, because Aquarius rules anything to do with social distancing and so forth, it might get lifted off. No wonder, you know, some people would deserve some Nobel Prize at the moment, to be frank, because COVID is not on the plate anymore. No one is talking about it. We've got something else to focus on. So kind of like it is, in my opinion, bringing the end of COVID. But the whole idea here is that this Mars going into the sign of Aquarius is going to be somehow echoing of the 2020 March energies. Of course, it's not going to be the same because at that time we had Jupiter here also, which is kind of magnifying certain type of things. But still, the danger with Mars in the sign of Aquarius that it can really bring some disturbance, some unsettled mind and feeling. This is kind of like a mental restlessness type of position. So the well-being and the mental health of people going to be somehow in the forefront, in the limelight overall. Mars represents your basic animal instincts. It talks about your drive and your passion, what you can be passionate about, what is actually driving you forward. It is the planet of sexual desires overall. So in the sign of Aquarius, it does talk about the independency issues, such as, you know, it's all about individuality versus collective energies, and then how to have that fine line in between. And that could be one of the challenges of Mars here. So Mars is a hot-headed planet. It talks about the primary needs of someone. But Aquarius says that, you know what, we need to be looking at what is going on with other people as well. So imagine that we've got a kind of like a group of, I don't know, lions sitting together with the wolves and then trying to discuss whether that, I don't know, animal, that cow, for instance, can be eaten together or not. So it's kind of like the hungry stomach is trying to be a little bit rational. And that's the little bit of a danger with Mars in the sign of Aquarius, that Mars needs to learn to be patient, and it needs to kind of learn that, you know what, there are others out there as well who might be hungry. So bringing these two together can be a challenge for Mars. So to give you another example, you know, you can become very frustrated with your work, for instance. What Mars wants you here is to kind of sit down a little bit and then kind of collect all the necessary information and data before you actually going to be raising your voice. Because Mars is a loud planet, right? It's a red planet, so it's full of energy, it's full of passion, it wants to kind of come across strong. But in the sign of Aquarius, it tells you that you're going to have to slow down a little bit, because Aquarius is a fixed sign to start with. Secondly, you're going to have to use your communication style in kind of like a diplomatic way. And probably that Venusian energy next to Mars is something, you know, which we have to utilize when we are communicating about certain type of things. So Mars here is telling you to take the time to identify the root cause of any type of issues before you actually take an action. Ask yourself in what ways, what you can do to change the energy around you. I think Mars, because it does represent to a certain extent relationships, it could be a challenge for Mars, because Aquarius is meant, or Aquarius is said to be an emotionally detached sign. So what Aquarius does is that, you know, we are having the conversations and then we don't necessarily see things eye to eye. And then eventually an Aquarius is going to slam the door, kind of like storming out of the room, and doesn't get bothered to kind of come back and then, you know, sit down again. Because Aquarius kind of wants to cool down a little bit. So let's see how certain type of negotiations will be actually in the near future. But negotiations, how you actually talk to your friends or just to your relatives overall or people around you, they can frustrate you quite a lot. And it might be because you have got a very fixated opinion about something and others have got a different one. So here it is to kind of understand that we all have got different underlying motives overall. The need to discover Aquarius is about discovery of the other people's needs and desires is one crucial thing to consider with Mars in Aquarius. However, on the positive note, Mars is definitely helping you to kind of envision something to achieve your long-term goals. It can kind of put fire in your butts to actually get something going ahead. So probably it could be a very busy period for people who work in IT fields or electricians, for instance, or it could be a very busy period for astrologers. Mars is someone who is actually promoting something. So you might be wanting to promote your website. You might want to be promoting some advancements, some innovations when it comes to your technological businesses, for instance. So it could be a very busy period of time, especially with social gatherings as well. Maybe some of these social restrictions are going to be lifted up, and then all of a sudden, all the clubs and the pubs are going to be full of people and then kind of getting together. It's very possible that we're going to have some computer issues coming up on a collective and maybe on a personal level as well. And Mars is a diagnostic planet. So it kind of tries to find the root cause of any type of issues. It could bring in issues around vehicles. It could bring, as I said, a lot more activity in clubs or social gatherings, somewhere where kind of like busy places overall. It's very possible that somehow socializing will be promoted somehow. Or if that's not the case, then people may get very tired about just being at home all the time. And somehow they want to be expressing their frustration overall. So this Mars can become very rebellious overall. So some type of battles on humanitarian fields, or even battles and arguments in astrological communities, because I've got, let's say I made a prediction, another one made another prediction. Somehow the two are completely different, and then we're going to be having, little arguments. This is one of the reasons, for instance, I switched off the comment on the video I made about the war, because I know this, this Mars is very feisty at the moment. So I don't want my tribe to kind of have clashing, clashes going on between them. Unfortunately, the possibility of a cyber war or internet war, or kind of like trying to switch off the internet or hacking into an internet system, could be possible. So let's see if that's the plan of Russia or Ukraine, but they might be able to get into each other's computer also. You can easily have a fight with your friend. And Mars and Venus conjunction is going to be telling you that, you know what, we had a fight, now it's time to somehow make up. Mars represents your sexuality. Aquarius can be quite quirky, and it does things in an unusual way. So it could talk about unusual sexual activities going on. Typically, it would be talking about some type of group sex overall. But this Mars is very much about fighting for freedom. It's very possible that, I don't know, maybe a sexual video is going to get leaked of an important person. Because Aquarius can somehow represent the YouTubers, the type of kind of like social media influencers. So it's very possible that something is going to get leaked out. But on a humanitarian level, it's about fighting for individuality, it's fighting for social justice, it's fighting for some of your human rights overall. And probably there is going to be plenty of topic about it. People will try to justify their anger. And unfortunately, the anger of people can become very unpredictable while Mars is in the sign of Aquarius. The unpredictability is coming from Aquarius, and Mars rules something to do with your anger. Mars is a hot planet overall. So it's going into the collective sign. So it could really talk about the anger of the nations as well, and they want to kind of speak about it. Also, Mars rules sport events, so it could actually, and also it rules injuries. So it's very possible that some of the sportsmen, sportswomen, going to have some type of injuries, especially those type of sports which are happening in team spirit. So I'm just wondering if there is going to be any sport events happening in March and the first 2 weeks of April. It will be interesting to watch those out. Mars also rules surgical procedures. So there might be a lot more number of surgical procedures on the leg, calves, ankle area, even the knee as well to a certain extent, but knee is more Capricornian type of energy, by the way. Or, I know that in Germany, they have been testing the robots doing surgeries on humans. So maybe it's going to get tested somewhere else too, because Aquarius is something to do with, technological advancements. It's very possible that two groups of people are going to be fighting. Unfortunately, it could bring in some gangs also, or kind of like a secret group might be appearing somehow on the scene. That's very possible. And somehow the wounds are definitely a topic here, because Mars is the dispositor of Chiron in Aries, and actually they are forming a sextile as well. So something to do with injuries, some type of healing to do is going to be a very significant topic here. Conflict, or the ways how we should take action about making the future better, that could be one of the topics here, and then disagreement around it. Mars is going to be having a square to Uranus. So Mars is about action. Uranus in Taurus is about the ups and downs of the financial market. Now, I know that there is this huge bank who actually walked out of Europe. And what happened here is that, some of the currencies just kind of collapsed, really. And I went to Hungary, and the lines at the banks were so long. People were actually taking their money out, and the bank ran out of money, multiple banks actually. And what happened was that actually the next day when I went to take money out, there was no such service. And you have to order your money, and then it's going to come, I don't know, in 5 days and all those type of things. So people are very extremely frustrated about it. And this is exactly what that Mars-Uranus square either can make, that we're going to be taking some drastic decisions to kind of fix the financial institutions overall, or it can even magnify a certain type of situation in that field also. And remember that Aquarius is somehow representing your gains overall. So it is telling you to make a bold move. It is telling you to make big moves overall. The idealistic type of side of Mars in Aquarius is kind of bringing two worlds together. It's very much about discussing certain type of theories, doing some type of scientific researches, and so forth. But as I said, it's very challenging for Mars to kind of listen to others in the sign of Aquarius overall. Now, Mars, we always have to look at the dispositor of each planet. So the Mars dispositor this time around is Saturn, from a traditional perspective. And Saturn and Mars together are the two malefic planets. They are not friends, surely. One is a cold and dry planet, the other one is a hot and dry planet. So it's kind of like trying to mix oil and water. Not gonna happen. Aquarius says, oh, let's party, let's come together. And then Mars says, no, I wanna win. I want to achieve something, So Mars tends to be looking at everyone kind of like as an enemy, or at least a competition. Mars is going to be asking the question here, why do I need to be in this circle? These are competitions for me. So somehow I have to eliminate them. And of course, that's where Saturn comes into the picture, who says you need to be patient. Saturn wants to restrict the anger of Mars. And of course, Saturn is representing the communities somehow, like let's say the EU, okay? Because EU is actually having a Saturn return, but I'm going to be making a video about that anyway. So, and Saturn is the government, Saturn is the wise people. So it's kind of like we are trying to kind of tame a little bit Mars and trying to kind of feed Mars with a certain type of informations overall. It's kind of like, I feel like Mars in Aquarius sometimes talks about too many cocks among the chicken. And then we argue about the chicken. And that's kind of like the Venusian energy right next to Mars. But Mars in Aquarius definitely indicates some great network geniuses. Mars definitely misses the time in the sea goat sign, but we do need to use Mars in Aquarius energy for something meaningful, to take some serious and meaningful actions in our life as well as in the collective. It might be talking about revolutionizing the way we live our life. It might be telling you to build connections, networks, or exchange feedbacks with others so that you know that you have got someone's shoulder to cry on or to rely on overall. It's about fighting for the ideas. It's about bringing like-minded people together, kind of like forming a group, because Mars in Aquarius, the motto should be that we are strong as individuals, but we are stronger together. So it's definitely about trying to find some type of alliances. Now, March 22, you might want to mark that down in your diary because Mars is going to be squaring Uranus in the sign of Taurus. That's pretty good aspect for any type of sexual encounters, you know, just hooking up with someone on the street. But it could really talk about some mind-blowing experiences, but also this could really revolutionize Mars energy and says, no, we are breaking any forms. You know, it's just kind of like glass. I don't like its shape. Let's smash it and let's make a new glass instead. And April 5th is going to be also a pivotal day because that's when Mars is going to be conjuncting Saturn, which is the planet of structure and karma overall. So some type of karmic wounds are going to be coming back here to kind of be re-looked at. And this could really talk about standing up for social justice or societal type of justice, something that we care about. Now, Mars and Saturn are two malefic planets. So they together are very much about destruction overall. Both are very bad on their own if they want to be. And this is very much of the traditional approach, okay? I'm not a believer that, you know, planets always want bad, okay? But this combination can be a little bit like Bonnie and Clyde type of situation. So when they get together, you know, the wild horses really can kind of, you know, untamed type of energy could be really happening. And it could really talk about some toxic situations also going on. Remember that Mars is about war, drive, and rage. And it will be there for 6 weeks. And then once it goes into the sign of Pisces, we might be having topics about fugitives and refugees, but I'm going to be talking about that anyway. So probably the COVID issues will be lifted, going to be kind of start waning. And this toxic combination is going to drag our attention to other fields of humanitarian life. Well, unfortunately, from this war perspective, it's very possible that Putin kind of becoming a crusader, really. So he might kind of create more tension between nations. And of course, even it could indicate some nuclear threats overall. But I'm really hoping that that's not going to be the case. One of the reasons why I'm not so optimistic, because Mars and Venus conjunction These are two war planets, really, and they had 4 children. 2 of them are very prominent, which is Phobos and Panus. And those are the fright and panic planets, okay? Probably on a personal level, it's very possible that, I don't know, we're going to be having more coffee, for instance, or it could actually really kind of, let's see how the coffee prices will change, but there could be also some situation happening around that, because it's kind of like I need more energy. So what do? We drink Red Bull, we drink coffee, we drink Monster, or all these type of things. Now, I went back in history a little bit, and then I looked at the very last conjunction, apart from 2020, and the previous one in the sign of Aquarius between Saturn and Mars happened in 1992, 6th of March. So I looked at it briefly, what was going on around that time. Well, Moldova joined the United Stations, so which kind of makes sense. That happened on the 2nd of March, because we're really talking about uniting kind of forces here. Then we had a gas explosion happening in March in Turkey, and 263 people died. We can expect some damages around land and gas leak and stuff like that. Actually, yeah, that's very possible. Unfortunately, there was a computer virus, Michelangelo, and it really started taking effect. That was happening on the 6th of March, exactly on the Saturn-Mars conjunction, actually. And the 6th president of Jamaica, P.J. Patterson, resigned. So hopefully someone is actually going to decide that, you know what, I have to be walking away. But there were a number of records broken in sport fields. And this is because Mars and Saturn together is about endurance. So I tend to call this aspect as the long distance runner aspect. So because Saturn can run with a rock, and Mars gives us the speed overall. So we should be expecting some great records being broken in sport fields. Unfortunately, there were also war going on. Serbia and Sarajevo were having some conflicts around that time, and that was happening in the middle of March. So it could kind of indicate that the same participants somehow gonna be appearing again on the news, or just some very similar story. And also this could talk about fights between bigger organizations. Now, at that time, Apple and Microsoft court case was going on, which eventually got dismissed. So guys, this is my intake on Mars in Aquarius. I hope it helps you to prepare a little bit, and I hope to see you on my upcoming class on the planetary pairs. See you soon. Bye-bye.